Hello guys, and welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms video. And today we're going to talk about 5 big mistakes that you make when you're swarming flags in KVK, and just in general tips on what ways you should not do it and what ways you should do it. So the number one tip is knowing when to swarm. Okay, some people think that you should just swarm whenever, or you should swarm when it's red. You really need to pay attention to when the flag, the white numbers on your marches when you're getting hit. You need to pay attention to when the rally kind of starts. So if you're rallying the flag, you see the numbers. It's usually around 20,000 normal attack damage, something like that. But when the flag gets really low, or the fortress, it's usually around 5k, like normal attack damage back. And that's when you want to start swarming. You don't want to swarm when it's at 10 to 15,000 normal attacks, or 20,000. That's when the fortress or the flag is almost full. That'd be my number one tip to you guys, is just to pay attention and know when to start swarming, and communicate with your allies to start swarming together, and not do the one march, like somebody hits and then everybody like slowly but surely gets in, so then the first person just gets wrecked. That'd be my number one tip to you, and it's the biggest mistake, is not knowing when to swarm. Okay, number two is using the right marches. Okay, so the main marches you're going to want to use for the swarming flags are high skill damage marches, and marches that aren't like a double C primary or an Ethelfled primary, or things that don't do a lot of skill damage and are debuffers. You really want to be only having like 1 or 2 of those swarming, because you want to be doing a lot of damage more than you want to be buffing. 1 or 2 buffers like a Trajan and Ethelfled swarming is fine. Whoever's doing it, though, is going to hurt a lot. But the main marches you want to use is like XY, your Guan Yus, and your Nebus, things like that have a high skill damage output, that are going to make the garrison lose a lot of troops really fast, and make sure that the garrison is hard to keep full. That would be my number two tip to you guys, because it's very important that you understand what marches should be swarming, and you're not just using whatever marches you have on the field. You're not using Attila Takeda and things like that, because they're not doing a lot of damage to the flag or the fortress. You're just kind of doing a lot of counterattack, and with like an Attila Takeda, so you're not really doing any real damage. Pakal and Herald's fine because they do a lot of damage themselves, but something like Attila Takeda or like a double C, it just doesn't do a lot of damage very fast. It's over time kind of damage what they do. My number 3 tip to you, or your biggest mistake, is knowing when to stop swarming. Or to back off. So when your march gets to yellow and eventually to red, you're going to want to back off and let another march in, a full health march. So you're going to want to make sure you're using your 50% expansions when you're swarming a flag. And then once you're under 50%, you want to back off and let somebody else in, because 350k to 400,000 troops is better than you swarming with 100,000 troops at a red, or like 150,000 at yellow. Because the amount of troops really does matter when you're hitting a flag, because it's more damage. It's plain and simple, it's more damage. And the person that's swarming with a full march is getting way better trade than you are with a red march. If you're swarming with the red march, even though you're buffing, it's not helping. It really, really isn't that much. You really want to back off and let a different march in. Because if you're swarming, you want to make sure you have plenty of marches there nearby, so you can keep swapping out and keep that garrison always constantly being swarmed really heavily. That's the way to swarm a structure, is to make sure it's always being swarmed with full marches, so that the garrison is losing troops so fast that it's very difficult to fill the flag or fortress. My 4th tip to you guys is knowing which troop type to use to swarm the flag with. So most of the time, I would say, at least in my KVKs, it's going to be Xeno and YSS in the flag, but it could be archers, a Monitor, and Artemisia. It could be Jadwiga. Something you want to pay attention to is when you're using different troops of types of troops on the field, is paying attention to what the garrison is, because if it's an archer garrison, you want to use Cav. If it's an infantry garrison like Xeno, you're going to want to be using archers for the majority of the people swarming. I know that on the field it's not always easy to pay attention to what garrison you have, because they can swap the garrison, or you have Cav on the field, but they have a Cav garrison. At some point, you're going to have to swarm anyways. But sometimes it is easier if you pay attention to which troop type they have, so you can swarm with the correct troops to counter them. Because, like I said, Cav counters archers, infantry counters calves, and then archers counter infantry. My fifth tip to you is the biggest mistake is to just not be afraid to swarm, okay? Sometimes you are trying to rally a flag and you just can't take it down. Just don't be afraid to swarm, because the last 4 tips or biggest mistakes, if you know those, this 5th one's easy. Just make sure you aren't afraid to swarm, okay? Because at some point you're going to have to swarm to take a flag down. If you're swarming a Xeno, sometimes it's almost impossible to beat a Xeno because she heals so much and is constantly able to like reduce all the damage that they take with YSS and stuff, and all the shielding and stuff. It's sometimes very hard to even just burn a flag with a garrison like that, because it just doesn't like go down very quickly. It just reduces so much damage taken. It does so much damage back to you that it's hard to take a flag down sometimes with like a Xeno. So just don't be afraid to swarm. Make sure you're communicating with your allies to coordinate a swarm. When you have gotten all the 4 tips I've already said, when you've got those out of the way and everybody's doing it the right way, you can really cause some serious hurt to a flag or a garrison if you do it the right way. So what I'm going to do now is show you guys a flag swarm, and you can see some different kind of like the tips I'm talking about, like ones that some people followed and some people didn't follow when they're swarming this flag, okay? So I hope you guys enjoy that. Follow those 5 tips I'm been telling you, and you guys should do okay. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you guys enjoy the next part.